Most dentists, we get so clinical focused and we start working in the business too often and not stepping away to work on the business. So developing that mindset shift early on really starts making you more profitable, but also gives you more freedom and decreases stress, as you talked about, Len. There's a lot of bad things in dentistry and it's a stressful career, but when you do it the right way, in a fun way, then you really start having fun doing it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Raving Patients Podcast. As you know, I'm your host, Dr. Len Tau, and I hope you're having a great day, evening, morning, whenever you're listening to this podcast. It is being recorded in April, so we're only about a month prior to the release of this episode, which is May 1st. To begin with, as always, I want to thank my sponsors, Dental Intelligence, CallRail, and Net32 for their continued support, which does allow me to come to your inbox every single Friday with a new episode. In addition, I want to remind everybody about my event, Supercharge Your Dental Practice, September 25th through 27th in Fort Lauderdale at Pier 66. You can check out the amazing speakers, the amazing events we're going to be having, superchargeyourdentalpractice.com, and use the code RAVING, R-A-V-I-N-G, to save $100 on your registration to an already fairly inexpensive event. You do not want to miss this. Today's episode is From Owner to CEO, the systems, data, and leadership behind scalable practices. My guest is Dr. Rehan Shahid, and I want to welcome him to the podcast. I also want to read his bio. So, Rehan is a practicing dentist, entrepreneur, and CEO of Shahid Dental Group, a multi-location dental organization in Texas. Under his leadership, the group has scaled to multi-million-dollar revenue while building systems designed for sustainable growth, accountability, and profitability. He is the founder of Practice Success Academy, a coaching and leadership platform dedicated to helping dentists systemize their operations, increase case acceptance, strengthen leadership teams, and build practices that are no longer dependent on the owner's daily presence. His core mission is simple: help dentists buy back their time and scale their office. Rehan is known for translating high-level business strategy into practical, implementable frameworks that dentists and their teams can execute immediately. His work centers on leadership, infrastructure, KPI-driven management, operational clarity, and building CEO-level thinking within dental practices. Through speaking, consulting, and coaching, he equips practice owners to move from chaos to clarity and from operator to CEO. So please welcome to the Raving Patients Podcast, Rehan Shahid. Rehan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you, Len, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you on the podcast. We are both members of Backstage, and I love having Backstage people on here, so I have a number of them scheduled, but you are the first. So let's begin with... That's good. I appreciate that. So to begin with, why don't you kind of expand on your bio a little bit and talk about your journey and how you came to helping dental practices at this point, and really how you help them.
Yeah, so in dental school, I realized quickly that they don't teach you anything on the business side. And you do learn some dental stuff, but really we all know the dental stuff is learned as you do it when you're in grind mode being a practice owner. So there wasn't that many resources out there that allowed a dentist to go and learn the business. There's some podcasts out there like yours, Len, that's really good. There's some courses out there, but there wasn't a dedicated platform for people to actually say, hey, I want to get step-by-step better on the business side. So for me, that's where Practice Success Academy came from. It was, hey, how do I, from all my experience now as a practice owner, how do I box all of that into a program that I can work with people and say, hey, I don't have all the secrets, but I can at least walk you through what I've learned and what I did from my tried and true experience. So that's where Practice Success Academy came from. On my clinical side, as a COVID grad, so I graduated during COVID, bought 2 practices during COVID, which was unheard of as a COVID grad. From there, I bought 2 more in a couple of years, and now we're at 4 practices. We do around $8 million in revenue, and I don't have it mastered yet. I don't think anyone can, but I definitely know what it takes to start buying back your time. And that's what I do. I have learned over time now, how do you buy back your time? How do you leverage people? And how do you become system and people dependent versus purely you as an owner dependent? And that's what I praise and teach on.
Yeah, that's amazing. You mentioned it. You don't really learn anything about business in dental school.
Yeah.
They don't teach it. They don't want to teach it. In all the years and you're a baby compared to me. I graduated in '99. So 21 years later, you graduated school, and in the 21 years, business has become such a bigger aspect of one's practice, but they still basically ignore it in most dental schools. So I'm glad you recognize that fairly early. And my entire platform and everything I do is related to business and marketing. I don't teach clinical dentistry. Don't really even focus on clinical dentistry in any way, shape, or form. Everybody I align with helps with the business and marketing side, because that's what practices need help with. It's very easy to do the drilling and filling, but the billing part and everything else, it's another level there. So I'm excited to have you on here, and I want to jump into some of the content here. So I think dental practices or dental practice owners understand the dental part very quickly. They continue just to go and repeat in what they're doing. But there's a big difference between being a dental practice owner and a true CEO. And I think a lot of dentists have a difficult time making that transition or never make that transition. So can you kind of talk about the differences between just an owner and then also being a CEO of your business?
Yeah. So first step is it's a mindset shift that not a lot of people, like you said, do. A practice owner, in lack of better words, is an office manager. Right? Most dentists, we're a glorified manager or a firefighter where we'll focus on problems, and we kind of become this reactive owner where we only really get involved if there's a problem, we go solve the problem, and we wait for the next problem. We're not really focused on growth or taking this to the next level, 10xing it. It's just purely a reactive dentist. The CEO dentist now, they're more framed on the business mindset. So they think, how do I become proactive rather than reactive? And so they start looking at data to project, hey, if I need a 10x it, it's not rocket science. I know the exact numbers I have. I know what 10x means. I just have to now figure out how to bridge the gap. And so they become very intentional in what they do rather than become reactive and just solve problems. And so that mindset shift is, I think, the first stage that people have to accept is I'm going to run my business like a business, not as the glorified manager or firefighter that just gets involved when I need to be involved.
I think a CEO also delegates tasks to people who can handle them better than they can. And I think a lot of us like to micromanage our practice too much, and they don't, or they can't delegate things. And I think that's a big problem in the industry, and that's why there are a lot of stress in their lives. I hate to say that's why there's a lot of suicide in the dental industry. I just think they become so overwhelmed with what's involved in running a business, and they really can't do it in the business. I don't want to say he's going to fail, but the business is not as successful as they want it to be. So I think a lot of it, I think delegating is a big deal. How do you deal, or what are your thoughts on delegation of tasks then?
I think you have to empower and delegate rather than abdicate. A lot of people get that confused. Delegating is not tell someone what to do and expect it to be done to perfection. It's give them the handoff of here's what success looks like. Here's all the resources and tools. Let's come up with a plan to do it together. But you're giving them the opportunity to hold that to completion. And I think Mark Costa said it best where he talks about you don't have to be the person that takes out the trash in your company. That's not called servant leadership. You do, though, have to be able to tell them, hey, you're responsible. Here's your structure, and I'm here to help you the whole time if you need me to. And I think a lot of people get confused on that. They think you have to be the first one in, last one out. Well, no, you don't. But you have to make sure you're equipping your people and you're hiring the right people to take on the tasks that you don't care to do or want to do. Like, I'm not going to take my own trash out, not because I'm entitled, but because I've hired people to do so. I'm going to support them, though, in that process.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you say that, because when I bought my practice, I bought it from a dentist who committed suicide back in 2007, and I had a very well-oiled machine from a team perspective, or so I thought, and I basically went in another direction in 2012 when I started speaking a lot and traveling, and obviously I got involved with the reviews in Bird Eye, and I became a part-time dentist in 2017. But the reason I was able to do that was because I created systems in the practice that allowed me to not be there, but yet the practice still continued to run like a well-oiled machine because everybody knew what their role in the practice was. I think that has a lot to do with it. So creating systems, and look, you know better than anybody because you have 4 practices, that when you come up with a system and you're able to scale it, the practices just continue to run on their own, and you don't have to be there because the system that worked in one of them, which is repeated in all the other practices, same thing happens there. So I'm assuming that you have a system that you have established that is being followed in all these practices. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, and I think, you're never going to get the perfect system that works perfectly everywhere, but the biggest success in that is, do you have something on paper or something that people actually can reference to know what to do? And do you have someone that owns that role or whatever that process is? That's what separates a non-scalable practice from a scalable one. Someone has to own that role of, this is my job and this is what I need to do a part of that job scope.
Yeah, it's amazing to me, because I'm in front of dentists almost every single day of my life, whether I'm lecturing or on the phone with somebody, doing consulting, a lot of the other things I get involved with. It's amazing to me how dental practice owners know so little about the numbers in their practice. Mm-hmm. And I'm a big Shark Tank fan, and I still remember hearing, you have to know your numbers, you have to know your numbers, you have to know your numbers. And it's like beaten into my head. And it's amazing to me how many practice owners simply do not know their numbers. What's your overhead? I don't know. What's your adjusted production after insurance? After insurance write-offs? I don't know. How many new patients you have? Oh, I know that number. Okay, so they know how many new patients they get. But it's amazing to me how many people don't know their numbers. And these KPIs are so important for owners to know, track, and actually use them, and use the data that it provides to make decisions that are data-driven. So Can you talk about some of these KPIs that practice owners need to know and need to memorize and need to want to be able to learn? Otherwise, you're literally drilling and filling. You're not doing anything else.
Yeah. So, it's at the end of the day, it is a numbers game, right? That's what all business is. Beyond the subjective hoorah component of a business, you have everything as a numbers game at that point. For growth, people always look at new patients, and for me, that's 40 new patients a month. That's 30 ideal is good, but I always like 40 is the number I shoot for. And then it's a math game. If I'm at 35 and I know my customer acquisition cost, my CAC is, whatever, I know, hey, I just got to fuel my fire, put more into marketing to get to that 40. Then it's a numbers game there. If I want to increase my hygiene department, for example, I know if I want to make a hygiene department profitable, I should, in theory, do 3.3x what their daily wage is, whatever that looks like, and just do more than that. So if I know that math is like, let's say $1,200 and my hygienist is producing $1,000, I know the exact thing I have to do to get them to that bridge, that $200 gap. Is it more fluoride? Am I measuring the fluoride rate for my average hygiene visit? Am I measuring their perio-diagnostic percentage? Most hygienists, for example, they underdiagnose perio. Am I using these KPIs to actually drive decisions is the main goal? For doctors, are we measuring at the bare minimum what our daily production needs to be based on our goals, right? I may want to be a millionaire dentist. If that's the case, I need to know what my daily production needs to be. More importantly, my team needs to know that so they can help bridge that gap with me. Doctors, we all want to be these millionaire dentists, but our case acceptance might be horrible. Are we even tracking that to be able to allow it the opportunity to be better? Treatment acceptance, or is that better? And so a lot of people, they just don't track anything. And that's where they start failing, is because they're not tracking everything, but they're hoping for the best. There's not a proactive effort going into wanting to be better.
That makes a lot of sense to me. You got to know your numbers, and I will repeat that. I talk about that to almost every practice I interact with, because knowing the numbers, I think, is the key to unlocking the practice's faults and issues. But if you don't track and you don't use it, it's kind of wasted. So not only do you have to track it, but you have to use it, which is interesting. So we talked about delegating, which involves a team. So can you talk to me how involved your team is, and things you do so the practice can survive without the owner being involved in everything that happens? So how do you empower them? How do you get them to a point where they can kind of take over the everyday, I don't want to say issues, but the everyday things that happen in a dental practice, and you don't have to be involved in all the decisions that are being made?
So I'm a big fan of Dan Martell, and he has a book called Buy Back Your Time, which I recommend to everyone. For a dentist to start delegating anything, the dentist first has to see what do they actually do on a day-to-day basis, or week to week or month to month, to see what can they even delegate. And it's called the Buy Back Your Time matrix. Think of it like color coding, a red, yellow, and green. Green is something that you don't need to do as an owner. You can delegate 100%. Yellow is something that you could delegate, but maybe you don't want to. Red is this is something you as an owner have to do. For example, payroll, that's a green. You don't need as an owner to do that. You can delegate that. So step one is first identifying what are all these red, yellow, and green items that you as an owner do, and then figure out how do I now actually go and delegate that. Step two is figure out what SOPs you need to make or Loom videos or whatever you need to do to actually make those trainable, so then whomever it is delegated to, they can actually run the play and do it. And then step three is making sure you have the right person in the right seat to do that. Right? If you're delegating something to someone that barely knows anything, then you're not going to win there. You got to hire the right person to be able to take that, whatever you're giving to them. But it starts from the dentist. Step one is, figure out what you're trying to delegate first. And the only way to do that is first know what do you do and write it on paper. Like, empty the brain dump it all on paper, and then it makes so much more sense when you see it.
Got it. Is there any particular way that you recommend? I know you talked about office manager. A lot of dentists are their own office manager unless they hire someone to do it. So is there having a small practice? So I had one front desk, 2 dental assistants, and 1 hygienist. So I had a very small team. So I was basically the office manager. At what point do you think you have to take a practice that is trying to grow? At what point do you need to bring in an office manager to handle a lot of the things that the dentist would be doing otherwise? Where does that shift happen? I guess would be a great way to describe it.
I think that's really day one, because if you have a front desk person and their job is to pick up phones, maybe present treatment, that means the dentist, you're doing everything else. And everything else you're doing means you're taking away from your clinical time, which actually makes you the most money. And so I always like to say, flip the script, hire the manager, because more often than not, they'll have the experience to be the better front than just some random person picking up the phone anyway. And so, yeah, you pay an investment a little bit more in the beginning, but it buys you so much more time and more return on that in the get-go. For those that have one front, the question then becomes, when do I hire the manager if I already have a front desk? The rule of thumb that I've always seen is for every 50K, you need another front person until you get to a diminishing return concept. So if you're at 0 to 50K, you're a startup, you only need one front person. Ideally, that's a manager. If you can't afford it, then you can hire a front person, but ideally, I'd want a manager at that point. From 50 to 100K, now you have to have 2 people. Do you need 2 people? No, but it's kind of like the chicken or the egg. That second front gets you to that 100K production mark. And then so forth until you get to, when you're at like 200K, you don't need a million more front team members. At some point it stops.
Got it. No, that makes a lot of sense. So when I was practicing, one of the things I don't want to say dreaded most, but I felt was a waste of time was team meetings. And it took me a lot to get them to be productive. A lot of them were failing. A lot of the team really just sat there and they were like, I'd have to, hey, Earth to you. Are you going to pay attention? Are you going to say anything? So why do you think that most dental practice meetings fail? And what do you think an effective results producing meeting actually looks like? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that.
So I was one of those people too, where initially we had horrible meetings, same thing. People would get on their phone and it was just horrible. Complete waste of time. And I realized it's because I wasn't, one, involving everyone to be a part of that meeting, and number 2, it was more of a vent session than an actual structured meeting. So ultimately, when doctors are doing meetings, their lack of structure is what makes the meetings boring, and so that's where people start disengaging. So we now do what we call an L10 meeting, kind of following the concepts of traction and EOS. Those are 2 good books where we have an actual structure of how the meeting goes. So everyone's more engaged because there's a structure component to it. Versus the previous style I did was more of a, hey, what's the number 1 issue in our company? How do we fix it? Everyone just started complaining, and the complaints never resolved anything because no one would take ownership of, well, cool, I got all the complaints, but now how do we actually fix it, and who's going to go and fix it? And so that structure gave that ownership of, hey, if you identified a problem, let's identify the solution and who's going to own that solution. So that way when we meet next time, we can talk about it. Number 2 on that structured meeting, the L10, it also has KPIs in it. So if the meeting's not resulting in problems being solved, numbers being looked at, so we can actually see what real problems are, then we're not really getting anywhere. Because for me, a problem isn't the microwave is broken and it's not working. It's, we're doing super low on our production and I want to be able to see the KPIs within 2 seconds to see what solution do we need as a team make up to bridge that gap. So that structure really makes those meetings a lot more effective. The L10, which you can go to Google and find a template and start running it.
Interesting. I had never heard of that before. So that's an interesting concept you just brought up.
Yeah,
So,
and I even have my own template. I'm happy to share with anyone listening in if you reach out to me.
yeah, so at the end, we'll get your contact information. So if people want that information, they'll be able to message you and you'll send it to them directly, like you said.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, they're listening to podcasts. They're passing time along when they're driving, working out, whenever they're listening or watching the episode. And there's tons of dentists out there who are struggling. They're stuck, overwhelmed. They feel like they're not going to be successful. Look, if you're in all these Facebook groups, you see it every day, people commenting and posting stuff about their practices and the lack of success. They're struggling, whatever it is. What do you think, someone who is stuck or overwhelmed, what do you think 2 or 3 steps that they can take to start thinking and operating like a CEO?
Step 1 is look at the numbers. So the numbers never lie, right? That'll tell you so much. And when I say numbers, I mean look at your P&L to see actually what changes you can make to become more profitable. Know what the industry standard is versus where you're at. Compare the two, and that's where you can work on. Number 2 is your actual practice KPIs to see, if your treatment acceptance rate, or let's say case acceptance is like 20 and you need to be at 60, then you know where to work on. So numbers first, step 1. Number 2 is I am a big believer in meetings, but effective meetings. If you don't have communication in your company, then you don't have anything. So utilize the numbers to help drive decisions during the meeting, and that's where you start getting traction. So that's step 1. Step 2. Step 3, I always say you have to be talking to someone better than you, right? If you're the smartest person that you know, then you don't know that many people. And so if you don't have some form of mentor or coach or whomever you can look up to, or listening to podcasts, some form of actual educational content that makes you a better owner, then you're just kind of stuck because you don't know any better. So you have to proactively put yourself in those environments to get better through either a paid model like coaching or free stuff like podcasts or books.
It's interesting you brought up, coaching. It's funny, you see 2 people, they love their coach or they hate their coach. There's nothing ever in between, like they're okay. So I'm curious, why do you think that happens? How do you recommend someone take the best, or how do you recommend someone gets the best results from using a coach or a consultant? I'm curious your thought process on that, because I get a lot of questions about coaching, and I don't like to call myself a consultant. I don't like consulting. I'm an advisor, I think is a better term. I like giving advice. Getting them to take action is another thing. So I like to advise them, but I'm curious your thought process on coaching, consulting. How can they get better results from using somebody?
So I think step 1 is talk to someone that's actually doing it. If you're talking to, and I'm not downing anyone, I think all coaches are great. I actually don't think there's such thing as a bad coach. I think there are worse students than coaches. So I think, talk to someone that's doing it. If you're talking to, let's say, a hygienist that retired 40 years ago and now they're doing coaching, there's so many changes that have happened. Not saying that coach is bad, but they may not be the best person that you need in your practice. So talk to someone that's actually been through where you are, that's going through the issues, that's surpassed it. That's a group that you want to be a part of. Number 2, Alex Hormozy says it best, just do more work. I don't think you can always outwork a problem if you do it the smartest way. So kind of like a fitness coach, if a person doesn't lose weight, it's not that the fitness coach is bad. They gave you the macros, they gave you the gym workouts. You just didn't grind in the gym consistently. So staying consistent with what the coach is talking about is where you start really getting the magic to happen. But most people, they just don't trust the coach enough or for long to be able to get those results. And it's also your team, right? If a coach says, hey, this is a team issue, you got to just roll with it. And often it is. Our team's always often our biggest bottleneck, and it's a mindset shift that we have to get through to say, hey, I got to be okay with letting people go if I need to.
As they say, you need to fire quickly and hire slowly, I think is the slogan.
Yeah,
you need to
hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah, exactly right. So Obviously, a lot of practice success is based on profitability, and a lot of practices, with the amount of overhead and the amount that teams cost nowadays, and the decrease in some of insurance reimburses, the amount of practice profits, okay, can be troublesome for a single location or even groups. So, what do you think are some of the biggest leaks or profit leaks that you see in practices that you work with, or ones you don't work with? And you even see it on ones that are doing over $1 million a year. So where do you think practices should focus on? What should they look at to see where these leaks are coming from potentially?
I'm going to reference a quote that someone told me. Dr. Hoffpower, when I was in dental school, I shadowed him for like 2 hours. And in those 2 hours, he probably changed my entire life. And in those 2 hours, one thing he said to me was, never do free dentistry in your life unless it's for a mission trip. Something around that. And a lot of dentists, we do so much free dentistry, meaning we probably do something that we don't code. And if you're an in-network, you probably were not coding for so many things that you could do. For example, if a cavity is really big and you put a pulp cap, code the pulp cap. Don't do it for free. And so, little things like that people miss. Now, is that going to, change the game for you? No. But it's also looking at your numbers to see, going back to that, what are you not doing? And it's just a numbers game. If your case acceptance is really low and you're wanting to get more production, you don't need more new patients there. You just need to focus on that case acceptance, which is better at sales, better at communication. And either you get better for free or you go hire a coach that helps you with that. Either way, make progress. But then give yourself a deadline to make that progress, or you're just kind of running without a finish line.
Got it. And so you're saying that, just to repeat it, Doc Hoffpower, Chris, who runs the business and dentistry group, I know very well, he left you with saying that you need to basically don't do free dentistry. So bill what you do is really what it is. Yeah. Interesting concept. Yes, we are always giving away free dentistry all the time. And I think that's just... Well, I think we knew it. I think we know it. But it's the way, and look, not that we can compare ourselves to medical, doctors per se, but literally the way they bill is they bill for everything they do. I just went because I've had a sore hip, and it turns out I'm getting old because I have arthritis in one of my hips, and I also have a bursa sac issue. Bursitis, as they call it, and she charged me for the needle they use, not the injection. They charged me for the injection, but actually the needle that she put on the injection. But there was a separate line item for that. So they are used to billing that way. We're not, I guess. I don't know if that's a fault with dental schools or wherever, but most dentists don't bill what they do. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think that, and then just like we talked about, looking at the numbers, you then have the roadmap of what you actually need to do, and it's not a blind thing anymore. Like, you actually get the roadmap of exactly what you need to fix. Now you just got to execute on it.
Got it. No, that makes a lot of sense. So we're nearing our end point on the meat and potatoes part of the podcast, the content portion. Is there anything that we did not mention yet that you wanted to bring up? We'll get your contact information after the lightning round Q&A. But is there anything that we haven't discussed that you want to bring up?
I'm just going to reemphasize a mindset shift. Most dentists, we get so clinical focused, and we start working in the business too often and not stepping away to work on the business. So developing that mindset shift early on really starts making you more profitable, but it also gives you more freedom and decreases stress, as you talked about, Len. There's a lot of bad things in dentistry, and it's a stressful career. But when you do it the right way, in a fun way, then you really start having fun doing it.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for sharing that. So let's jump into our lightning round Q&A for those that have not heard this part of the episode before. Is I have an app on my phone. It used to be a physical deck of cards. Now they've made it, an app called Podadex, and it comes up with business-related questions that I'm going to ask Rehan, and we're going to cover about 8 to 10 of these over the next few minutes. So first question, what is one thing that doesn't add value to your life, but you still enjoy doing it?
Eating pizza.
Eating pizza. Okay. Do you have a system in place to keep yourself organized? And if you do, what is it?
I use Trello, which is a project management type of app.
There are a lot of other project management apps, but Trello is one of them. Trello is very easy to use as well. Let's see. Who do you look to advice or mentorship?
I don't have one person. I think I have too many mentors in every segment of life that I feel like I need a mentor in. So
Okay.
I just have too many to list.
Got it. Describe Mondays for you in one word.
Not dreadful anymore.
Okay. If you had the chance to start your career over again, what would you do differently?
I'd go work for the dentist that has everything dialed in and learn as much as I can for them from day one.
Okay. If you could take a class to learn anything you want, doesn't have to be anything related to dental, but any class to learn anything you want, what would it be?
Marketing. I think marketing and is branding is really key in today's society.
Okay. Let's see what else we got here. What was the first thing you wanted to be when you grew up, when you were a kid?
An orthopedic surgeon.
Okay, well, dental is still working on the body. So, what is one skill or trait you feel is imperative to be successful?
Execution with consistency.
Okay. What profession, doesn't have to be dental again, what profession do you think is the most undervalued today and why?
Coaches, because people, like you talked about, they don't value them enough, but they're always needed. Michael Jordan, the best basketball player, had a coach, not because he wasn't the best, but because he's found the value in having one.
All right, a couple more. What culture exists in your organization and how did you define it in the very beginning?
Culture of dependability. So when someone needs something, they know they can go to anyone on the team and get an answer solved.
Okay. Let's see. What else do we got here? How do you define success?
I think for me, success is based on time. If I can buy back my time, then I figured I'm successful. But if I have to grind it out for my entire life, then I'm not successful.
Who is someone in the dental industry that you would love to collaborate on, and what topic would you love to collaborate with that person on?
There's so many people, but I think Mark Costas has always been a good colleague, and I think he does a lot of great things in dentistry, and I would love more collaboration.
All right, great. 2 questions left. Who has been your greatest inspiration?
Alex Hormozi. I think he's just a beast at what he does, and I look up to that.
Got it. Last question. Everybody gets it, so you're getting it too. What is one subscription, so something you either pay for monthly or annually, and it could be either business or personal, that you cannot live without?
Netflix. I got to get my show in.
That's great. A lot of people say Netflix too. So, well, Rehan, this was great. You provided us with a lot of information. If people want to find out more about what you can do for them, what is the best way for them to reach out to you? Do you have a contact information? I think you wanted to offer a complimentary consultation for dentists interested in speaking with you. But can you share your contact information and what you wanted to offer?
Yes, if you want to reach out to me, you could reach out to me on Instagram at Practice Success Academy, or go to my website, practicesuccessacademy.org. Those that reach out to me either or, I'm also offering a 30-minute free strategy call, which is figuring out what is your top 2 or 3 bottlenecks and how can I help solve them? Or at least how can I help guide you to solve them in a better way?
Well, this was great. Any final thoughts before we kind of end the podcast, Rehan?
Always seek to be better. So I appreciate you, Len, for allowing me to be here. And you've been in the game for a lot longer than I have. I always tell people I stand on the shoulders of giants. I'm not here by myself. You've contributed to that. People that have talked about in this podcast episode have contributed to that. And I'm always seeking to be better and learning from even better people.
Well, that was great. I appreciate that. I've been doing this a long time, and I don't need to be, thanked. I appreciate you thanking me. I appreciate you calling me out on that. I'm just here to, I'm a regular guy who got lucky and worked hard and did things, and a lot of this stuff found me, and I just kind of, took it to the next level. So I appreciate that you pointed it out. Guys, if you liked what Rehan said and you want to at least speak with him and get a 30-minute call, please reach out to him. He gave you his Instagram and he gave you his website information. So please reach out and mention that you heard about him through the Raving Patients podcast. I think that will be helpful as well. As always, if you think a colleague could benefit from the information, please share the podcast with them. Like us, review us, do everything you can to help promote the podcast. As always, remember the sponsors of the podcast. You've got Dental Intelligence, you've got CallRail, and you've got Net32. So hopefully you support them. Check out my event, Supercharge Your Dental Practice. Go to superchargeyourdentalpractice.com and use the code RAVING to save $100 on your registration. And as I end every single one of my episodes, remember, your reputation matters. Until the next one, Rehan, thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll talk to everyone soon.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.